Hi, I'm Mike Blume. This is lesson 34 of Endtime Bible Prophecy, Partial Preterism, showing the errors of dispensationalism and futurism. Isaiah 53:8 uses the same words that Daniel chapter 9 used concerning the Messiah, that he would be cut off. Notice that we do not read of the mention of a prince that shall come, whose people would destroy the city and the sanctuary. Rome destroyed the temple in AD 70. So the people who were of the prince that shall come were the Romans. The prince that shall come was a Roman. And this is he who the futurists believe is the coming Antichrist, and they're totally misreading this chapter. Grammatically, this individual is a side issue. He's not a subject at all. The paragraph needs a subject. It needs an object. There needs to be a verb, and so forth and so on. In fact, it's a lesser side issue than the people who would destroy the city and the sanctuary. It just says the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. He's even a lesser issue than the people, and the people aren't even the subject here. So we read of the grammatical subject, the Messiah. Then, as a side issue, we read of people who would come and destroy the city after 69 weeks. And as a further side issue, we read that these people are of the prince that shall come. So futurism and dispensationalism makes a far less issue than any other issue in the entire paragraph to be the subject. It doesn't make sense. The issue of the priest or prince is not at all in view here, nor in the following verses. The city and the sanctuary were destroyed. Verse 27 refers to the abominations that make something desolate. It's wonderful to notice that Jesus referred to the sanctuary or the temple and said this when the nation of Israel rejected him. Matthew 23:37. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings? Ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Their house, the temple, was to be left to them desolate. The entire picture of the church is that of a temple built of lively stones, of people who do not hold their peace, but cry out in worship to him, because natural Israel as a whole held their peace and refused to accept Jesus Christ at the behest of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the high priests. He would take their house and leave it desolate and raise up a new house made of lively stones. Daniel 9:27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is the controversial 70th week of Daniel. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined, shall be poured upon the desolate. Let's talk about the phrase, he shall confirm the covenant. Instead of the Antichrist, the he in Daniel 9:27 is Jesus Christ. The reason this is so is due to the fact that the grammatical structure, the literary structure of the verses 26 and 27 make it so. The subject of the one paragraph in verse 26 is Messiah. Then verse 27 begins by saying, he shall confirm the covenant. Who is the he? He cannot be the prince that shall come, because this prince is a side issue, and the subject has been the Messiah in verse 26. Therefore, the he must refer to the Messiah according to the grammatical literary structure of these phrases. Does the idea of confirming a covenant fit with Jesus Christ being the perpetrator of that confirmation? Yes. Jesus said in Matthew 26:28, this is my blood of the New Testament, or the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. In Hebrews 9:14 and 15, how much more shall the blood of Christ purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God, and for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, or the new covenant. Testament is translated from the same Greek word from which covenant is translated. Jesus is, in Hebrews 8:6, mediator of the new covenant. Malachi 3:1, messenger of the covenant. His shed blood is called in Hebrews 12:24, the blood of the everlasting covenant. Jesus Christ confirmed the covenant through his redemptive sacrifice at Calvary. What about the phrase, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease? Hebrews 10 verses 1 to 10 read, "For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered?" Catch that. If a sacrifice could make the comers thereunto perfect, the sacrifices would cease to be offered. Daniel says he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, using the same words. Because that the worshippers once purged should have no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Wherefore when he cometh into the world, he saith, "Sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure." Then said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of the book it is written of me, to do thy will, O God. Above, when he said, "Sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings for sin thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the law." Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. By the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And verse 14 is the kicker. For by one offering hath he perfected forever them that are sanctified. There is no further need for blood sacrifices because Jesus made an end of them. He caused them to cease by being the final one himself. Nothing here mentions a sacrifice by an Antichrist that would break the covenant confirmed with Israel by the Antichrist, as futurists think and teach. But over and over in the New Testament, we read of each and every one of the points Daniel noted in his prophecy as being fulfilled by Jesus Christ. Now, is that coincidence? It must be, according to futurists. But where are all the futurists referenced in the New Testament that attribute these things to an Antichrist? They're not found. Why does Jesus Christ be the one who's attributed as accomplishing all these things listed in Daniel 9 that would be accomplished in the 70 weeks of Daniel? All that we read about is that he causes sacrifices to cease. Futurists tell us that Antichrist breaks his covenant by stopping sacrifices in the temple and calling himself God. This is adding to the scriptures. All that we read about here is that he causes sacrifices and oblations to cease. And we read that Jesus did just that when he died 3.5 years after he began ministering his new covenant kingdom message. Just as Daniel 9:27 says that in the midst of the week, a week is 7, the sacrifices would cease. Half of 7 is 3.5. Jesus Christ ministered exactly 3.5 years and died and caused sacrifices to cease. Now that is Bible. That's outright blatant Bible. But where is this information that this is an Antichrist in the New Testament? They say, well, it's not there. We derive that. Yes, it's derived. It's out of the book. Israel continued offering sacrifices. And futurists will say, well, he didn't make an end to sacrifices. They kept on being offered. But God did not, nor ever will, recognize them. And why did Hebrews 10 use the language that if a sacrifice could be offered that would perfect the comers, then sacrifices would cease? If not God's mind being the issue we're concerned with of whether sacrifices have ceased or not. In his mind, they ceased. Whether Israel kept on doing them or not, doesn't matter. In God's mind, they ceased. Hebrews 10 uses that same language. In reality, since God doesn't recognize any blood sacrifice since Calvary, later sacrifices were not truly sacrifices in God's eyes anyhow. Jesus ministered for a period of 3.5 years. And John noted 4 Passovers during Jesus' ministry in John 2:13, 5:1, 6:4, and 13:1. Let's continue this fascinating subject.